Hey everybody, hope you all doing well. On this lovely Sunday afternoon, we're doing another impromptu live stream here, doing some testing. I'm sure some of you will probably show up at one point. James is here. Hey James, what's up, brother? Let me know if you can hear me okay, and everything looks good and sounds good and all that stuff. I'm sure people will come strolling in. So we got a few people that are watching, at least according to the YouTubes. So maybe some of you guys will start commenting. Anyway, I'm hoping my buddy David S.J. shows up too. I should have texted him. Matter of fact, let me do that right now. Want to talk to you about some stuff, hang out with you guys, and do a little bit of a test of running something off the console through the live stream. But first, he may not even be around. We'll see. So how's everybody doing? All good? Thanks, James. So I guess we should probably wait for a few people to show up. James, I got your song. I haven't listened to it yet. It's sitting on my desktop. I just have to get to it. We've been really busy we've been really busy yesterday, ripping apart the studio, putting it back together with the flock audio. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that today when people start to show up. So I got your song. I got to listen to it. I'm sure it's great. I can't wait to hear it. Yeah. So we're gonna talk about some gear today. If some people show up in the chat and usually people will show up pretty quickly after I get online here. I think the stream originally when I created it, was set to unlisted, and then I switched it to public, and I got a notification that I was live. So hopefully people will see this and they'll jump in, and then we can talk about the flock a little bit, as well as some other gear, and then do a little bit of a test here to see if this is going to work the way I think it's going to work. Because if it does, then in the future, we'll be able to do live stream mixing right off the console in real time. And that's what I want to really get to the point to do. So yeah, so that's it. So if anybody else is watching and you haven't commented yet, drop a comment. And hopefully a few of you will show up and we can do this test. If not, it'll just be me and James, and that'll be okay. Oh, someone texted me here. Dave is at a birthday party. He can't make it. That's okay. So David was here yesterday with me all day. We did a video which will go live in probably not for 3 or 4 weeks. I still have to edit the video. But basically we installed the flock, the XT, which is right there. You can see the little blue light. It's right there. The unboxing video you guys will see on Tuesday. And then videos will be coming out after that. But he was up here all day yesterday helping me. And we got the flock installed. We got it tested. It seems to work. This morning I spent some time with it to make sure things are going to still work again, and it seems like it's working. So that's really cool. And I got to tell you, the only thing that worries me, and I don't even know why I'm worried, is this thing stable? Meaning the way it's all digital, so it talks to the app, which I'll show you guys in a few. Hey Kevin, what's up, buddy? What does everyone think about the NAMM? I should probably put your comments on the screen, huh? What's NAMM news specifically? I only watched a few videos about some stuff. I don't know all the dirty details. My buddy Charlie, Charlie for out in California, Waymar Ultimate Studios Inc. The last 3 years, we would do a live stream where he would actually go live mobile with his phone and we would broadcast it live, and we did NAMM. This year, we couldn't do it because I wasn't available yesterday for NAMM when he was only going to be there on Saturday. But Charlie said he's going to take a bunch of video and a bunch of pictures, and he and I are going to and Dave will do a follow-up live stream probably next week to talk about what he saw at NAMM. That's about all I got for NAMM stuff. Hey, Braxel, what's up? What SSL news did you hear, Kevin? I know about some of the new gear. I have some of it here. It'll eventually get used on videos and whatnot. But yeah, we're gonna do a follow-up live stream, like a post NAMM live stream, probably next week with Charlie. I spoke to him about it the other day, so we couldn't do it live, but we're gonna do something. So anyhow, the only thing, again, I was talking about the flock, right? The only thing that I hope stays consistent is that because you have an application that talks to the box, that connection and that communication is stable, right? If that's stable, and if that just every day it just works, man, without a problem, then this flock system, complete game changer in this studio, without a doubt. And I'm going to show you a little bit of it in a minute. Oh yeah, I got that new audio interface, Kevin. It's sitting in my back room. It's called the SSL18. I had it before NAMM. They gave it to me for about 3 months so I can do a review on it, and there'll be a review coming. It looks like a really cool audio interface. It's a rack mounted, what is it, 18 in, 20 something out, I forget, for like $1,300, which is a great price for SSL stuff. So yeah, so I have it in the back. I haven't even taken it out of the box yet, but we will. Did you see the Antelope, what Antelope did with the CL1B clone? Nope. Where you have to pay for the subscription and automation to unlock features of the hardware. No, I didn't see any of that. No, I did not, Braxel. I haven't seen a lot of NAMM news. I'll be totally straight with you. I've been so consumed here with everything that's going on. Like I said, I watched a couple of quick videos, but I didn't really get down into the nitty-gritty of NAMM. So you guys can share information, that would be great. So anyway, this flock is killer. But before we get to the flock, we gotta, so you guys can't really see it. Let me turn off the light. So you could probably see the gear a little bit better. So the gear, some of the gear has been rejiggered around. One piece that you can't see that's it's up at the top. You can see it, but you don't know what it is. That's the SSL Bus Plus. We got the SSL Bus Plus in here and hooked that up yesterday too, and there'll be some videos on that. So I got a bunch of stuff I want to tell you is about some stuff we got from Flock, from stuff we got from SSL, a mixing contest that that SSL is sponsoring, and giving away some cool, a couple of plug-in controllers and some audio interfaces and some plug-in bundles with Slate. We got a bunch of stuff, which is really cool. So anyhow, so what I want to do is I want to talk to you a little bit about the Flock XT. So for guys that don't know, hey Chris, what's up, buddy? For guys that don't know, and you'll see it on Tuesday, but I'm telling all of you ahead of time because you're all my buddies. And you'll see the whole story of how I got involved with Flock Audio. But anyhow, they sent me their flagship unit. It's called the Flock Patch XT, which is a 192-point digital patch bay, 96 and 96 out. It's the largest one they make. I think it's the largest one on the we'll talk about that in a second, Braxel, which is their flagship model. It's the largest digital patch bay on the market, as far as I know, that many ins and outs in one box. They sent it to me for 60 days or so to try it out to see if it would integrate into the studio, which so far it has. And you'll see the whole how we got involved in it, why did we get involved in it, and all of that on Tuesday. Yesterday we installed it, and there's video that'll come probably 2 or 3 weeks from now that you'll see. It's kind of behind the scenes, mostly shot with an iPhone with Dave and I, showing the whole process of how we put it in and testing it and talking through it and all of that. You'll see that. And then I got some more videos coming for that. And so what testing I've done yesterday and today, the thing is absolutely killer. And I want to show it to you in a second. Now, Braxel says, too bad you didn't get the Wolf Audio. It appears to be way better. Okay, so, and I know Braxel likes to do this. Braxel's probably never used either one of these pieces, but he's going to assume it's better. I'm teasing you, Braxel. So here's the deal with Wolf Audio. Before I got involved with Flock, I reached out to Wolf Audio a few times, never heard back from them. So I did approach Wolf Audio about their patch bay, never heard back from them, which is okay. Got involved with some stuff with Audioscape, and Audioscape, Chris at Audioscape, my good buddy, is good friends with Darren over at Flock and introduced me to Flock Audio, Darren. And Darren was very kind. And we talked a long time, and Darren's a really cool guy. And I told him what I wanted to do. And he was willing to send a unit for 60, 90 days, no problem. So we could demo it and try it. And so I know, Braxel, you're always critical. Anyone else, no matter what piece of gear somebody gets, if it's not the piece of gear that you have, you get critical. That's okay. I'm only kidding. Anyway, and so we got it in here, and we did some testing with it. And I'm going to talk to you a couple of things that I want to talk to you about. So the number one thing that people complain about online and on forums, the only complaint I've ever heard is that they say it's loud, the fan noise is loud, it sounds really loud. I can tell you that that's complete and utter nonsense. And when you see the video in a couple of weeks, we actually put a decibel meter on it. You can't hear the fan even at its highest setting. It's below, room ambient noise. It's like runs at like 30 dB, the fan. If you put your phone right up against the back of the unit, it's really not loud. I can't hear it at all, and I'm sitting I don't know, 4 or 5 feet away from it. I suppose the fan would be an issue if you were set up in a way where you had, like, say, your studio desk, and if it was right there next to you, and let's say you were trying to record something with a condenser microphone or something like within a couple of feet of it, I suppose it could pick up some fan noise. It would, I'm sure. But there is a setting in the application where you can turn it off. You could turn the fan off completely, or you could put it on what's called emergency mode. It'll only kick on if it's really overheating. Or you can put it on low, or I think medium continuous running, which we have it on the highest setting, continuous running, and there's nothing about it that's loud. Nothing at all. So that was one thing I was concerned about, because the way people write about it online, and again, I know how online is. People get online and they say a bunch of stuff, but a lot of times those people have never even put their hands on the equipment, and they're talking about it like they know. So I was concerned. I thought when I turned this thing on, I was going to sound like a helicopter in the room, because that's the one complaint I hear everybody say. I don't know what everyone's complaining about. I'm telling you that the fan noise is almost non-existent completely. I don't know. Maybe I got lucky. Maybe the people that were complaining had a faulty unit. I don't know. But the fan is not loud. It's not even close to loud. You can't even hear it. Anyway. Hey, Juan, buddy, what's up? What happens if you keep the Flock patch bay? What happens? We're going to use it. What happens if I keep it? We're trying to determine whether we're going to keep it or not. So anyway, we took out the Switchcraft patch bays. I kept them in the back room in case for some reason this is going to go back, or for some reason it doesn't work the way I want it to work. I'm not sure. I haven't tested it very much yet. All I can tell you is what we've tested so far, it works like a charm. It really does, man. It is a killer thing. That particular unit, yes, it's super expensive. No BS. I mean, it's like 12 grand for that unit for 192 points. That's a lot of money compared to a regular patch bay. But the flexibility that this thing gives you is something you cannot do with a regular patch bay. I know, Praxel, I'm just teasing you, brother. You're my buddy. I love you. You got to do research, but sometimes you got to stop researching and you got to put your hands on the stuff. Because again, I hear a lot about this, again, not you, but just people in general. A lot of times people get online and they start typing away and they start saying things, and I've had it happen to me when it came to my console. And I would ask people, privately, have you ever even used the console? Oh, no. I used the console 25 years ago in the early 80s. I'm like, well, then you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Don't talk like you know if you'd have never really experienced it. Say, I heard this, or hey, what do you think about that? Anyway, people do that online all the time. So like I was saying, Braxel, about the Flock, people make it sound like you know, the noise and the fan noise was a huge complaint. Go on forums, you see that everywhere. And I was really concerned about that. But I got to tell you, it's not a problem. It's not. And I'm going to show it to you in a second. I'm going to show you the app. Seems like it's a no-brainer. Can't imagine you'd be going back to physical patching. Well, let me show you. Let's just say, putting the price tag aside, okay? Like I said, this unit is $13,000 if you were to buy it right out of Sweetwater or whomever, right? That's a lot of money. But it is super cool and convenient. So let me show you. So I'm going to try something we have never done here on the live stream before. So please, if this doesn't work out well, don't crucify me, but I think it's going to work. So anyway, I'm going to switch cameras here for a second. Let me pull up. I know you can't see the app yet. I know. Let me pull up the screen, and I should be in the corner, and you guys should see the Flock app on the screen. Please let me know if you can see that. You should be able to see that. I know there's a little delay on YouTube. You should see the Flock Patch app. Now, this is the new improved version of the app. I'm going to try to move the comments off here a little. You know, the one thing I'm realizing really quickly is I'm going to need to have I'm going to need to have another screen, you know, for my live streaming, for the DAW, for the Flock app, and I gotta have more TV screens all over the place. You can see it, Braxel? Okay, good, brother. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so basically, well, it's there, awesome. Okay, before I even take you through the app, here's the DAW. I want you to just, we're just gonna listen to, I want to play back this music and see off the console how it's going to sound to you guys. It should sound direct, high quality audio. When I tested it yesterday privately with someone, they said it sounded great. I want to see how it sounds to all of you throughout the world in your different studios. Keep in mind, this song was mixed before we put the Flock in and rejiggered all the gear. So none of the hardware that was originally inserted is inserted. The whole song needs to be remixed. So just keep that in mind. Here's this, oh, and this song is by, because I want to give them credit. Let me just pop this on the screen. So this song is by a band called Paradox IS, Halfway to Nowhere. My buddy Jason and student and colleague, I think they're out of Michigan or Minnesota, one of the two. Indie rock bands, great tune. I'll link after the stream their Spotify and Apple Music and their website in the description so you can check them out. Thanks, Jason, for letting me use this session. It's a good song. Anyway, let me know if you guys can hear this okay and how it sounds. Okay, here we go. Okay, I could turn it up. I just wanted to, okay, it needs to be louder, but it sounds okay. I'll turn it up. Let me just get myself orientated here. I just didn't want to clip and blow you guys out here. So let me, and I don't have the vocals in there. I just got the rhythm section going. Let me see if I can do this. Hold on. groups. Little better from a volume perspective? Let me know. Sounds great. Kevin says great. Okay, cool. So if it sounds good and it's just, we'll get the sounds great. Okay, good. So now I know that we got the right setup. So when we want to do full mixes live and do all that stuff, now I got all the gear dialed in. Okay. Let me move the comments here. And now I know I got to get a third TV monitor here so I can be watching the comments and the thing. And okay, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Yes, Brax. All right, good. Thanks, brother. Okay, so let me show you this app here. And let me show you. So here is the patch app. Now this is the DX version, which I guess they have two versions of the app. They have the DX version, and they have, which is supposed to be an upgraded version from their original app. And there's some different things I guess you can do in this app that you couldn't do in the original. Don't ask me what it is because I'm not really sure, but the layout's basically the same. I guess the DX has some more features. One of the features that it has, and one of the, you know, keeping a tally of some of the issues that I have not figured out yet, is they have some customization features you can do in the app, like color coding of your gear, color coding of your inputs and outputs, which is really cool. But they also have some recall screens, which is cool, where you can use the app on your phone or your iPad, and you can take photos of your gear and it'll sync right up and it'll drop it into the app. So you can save each patch session unique to that song. So everything is 100% recallable, which is great. Which, you know, makes things a lot easier. I don't think you can do that in the first version of the app. But anyway, let me just walk you through this and just show you how this kind of works. So basically the way this is laid out is we have all 32 long faders of the SSL, including the 8 stereo groups, 32 mono, 8 stereo groups hooked up to the patch. So that's 48 channels of the 96 channels. It's 96 and 96 out, 192. 48 of the channels is just the console, all the insert points on the console. And you can see that in the app represented here on the left-hand side. So the left-hand side of this app is where you list all your ins and outs, as well as all of your gear. So we have 96 points, or 96 in and out, 96 channels, excuse me. 48 are taken up by the console, 48 are taken up by the gear. So if you look at the left-hand side of this app, hopefully you can see it. You'll see that we have, and I've color-coded them all. Hopefully you can read it, it's okay. It says SSL 1 out, and then in purple, SSL 1 in. So SSL 1 is channel 1, SSL 2, channel 2, all the way to 32, and then the groups in the center, so everything on the screen is 1-to-1 left to right on the console. And when you set this up, you go into this thing called hardware your first time, and here's your hardware menu, and you just double click in the box, and you tell it what are your points. So I went in and typed in SSL out, channel 1 out, then you have an input. So you always have to have, when you create a path, you have to have, let me just scroll over here. You have to have the output or the send from the console for a channel to go through the gear, and then it's got to come back in on the return, right? So you have to list all of your inputs, sends and returns, ins and outs on each individual channel. Those are signified here in blue and in purple. The blue is the output, the purple's the input, so I can see it better when I set up a patch. Then beneath that, you have in red here, in different shades of red, the 8 stereo groups. If I scroll over here, you'll see them here, path 33, 34, 35. Remember, path 1 through 32 is channel 1 through 32 on the console. Then 33 through 48, those are the 8 stereo groups in the center of the console. So I recolor coded them in a different color. So I used red and like a salmon color for the groups. So all the individual channels are blue. The center section is red or a different shade of red for the ins and the outs. Then beneath that, you list all your gear. So I color coded all my compressors in blue, and then any EQs in green. And then I have a couple of de-essers down here on the last 2 channels that are in yellow. So you can easily pick them out. So basically you just go into that hardware screen and you list out all your gear. So once you set everything up, you get out a pad and we wrote it down in a list, and then I come over to the app and I type everything in. You only got to do that the first time, obviously. Color code everything the way you want, so on and so forth. And then it's as simple as you want to patch in, let's say, something on the snare drum. In this path 2, which is channel 2, which is the snare, you create yourself a loop. So you drag on channel 2, and I'll just do it for you and show you. I mean, it is pretty simple. So if I want to put a piece of gear on channel 2, I come up to channel 2. I'm going to grab the output, drag it up here. That's the output from the console. Right now we have the warm audio CL1B, and then I drag the purple to the input, and then you put the gear between the out and the in. Right? So I have all these slots that I can put the hardware. I only have to do this once. I set this up as a template. So every time I open up a new session, it's always going to have all my outs and all my ins for all 48 channels on the console. Whether I decide to use gear on a channel or not, you only have to do this once and set up a template. Hope that makes sense. I hope I'm explaining this correctly. It's really, I've only been using it for less than a couple of hours, but it is super intuitive. Okay. So in this case, I said, okay, on the snare, here's our snare drum. With the warm audio CL1B, right? Now, if I want to bypass this, I can play it back and just right click and bypass it, right? So here we go. It's got a loop around. Come on. So it's just a matter of dragging the gear from your list, picking out the gear in your list, and just drag and drop it right on the thing. And then you can just right click and you can bypass the gear, right click and bypass the gear. And one of the things that I noticed right away is there's no little pops or clicks, or it's seamless. Like, it's just like seamless. So let's say you say, well, okay, that's cool, but now I want to try a distressor, let's say. Right? So I can say, okay, where's my distressor in my list? I come down here, distressor number 1, and I say, I'm just going to drag it over it. Now I'm playing back the distressor. At least I thought I was. What did I do there? Did I do something wrong? And there's my distressor. Now, if I want to bypass, again, you just right click and bypass. That quick, right? So if you want to go back, now if you wanted to, say you wanted to go back to that WA1, right? So I can do 2 things. I can either drag it on the top or I could put it right underneath, right? So I can bypass this one and now listen to the warm audio. Now I can just right click and bypass and switch back and forth. You can hear either one. Or what you can do, once you've switched it once, all you have to do is use the shortcut on your keyboard. On a Mac, it's Command Z. And if you can see the screen, hopefully you can see it okay. Watch how it'll toggle back and forth between the distressor and the warm audio. So you can just cycle back and forth, which is really, really cool. And if you want to remove it, you just right click and remove it. And it's really that simple. And then when you take a piece of gear and put it into one of your paths, it grays out here. And again, I don't know how well you can see this over YouTube. I tried to blow it up, but on the left-hand side in the gear list here, you'll see that once I've used a piece of gear, it's grayed out, so I can't use it, right? So if I take this warm audio and put it here, it grays out on the side, so you can't use it again, which is fine. You can see it okay, Braxel? Okay, good, thank you. It's hard to tell. So it's basically, I think, Fire Frets, yeah, you said it. They finally turned hardware into plugins. It's really like using a plugin. It's actually quicker than using a plugin, to be totally honest. It's just wild, right? So now, if I have this and I just want to drop the distressor over the top, it should work. Let me see. I could replace it by doing that. Let's try that. Yeah, and you can just drop it over and you can just replace it, which is really, really cool, man, that you can do it that quickly. So this way you can just audition stuff right on the fly. Really, really cool. And then I could put the distressor, if I put the distressor underneath it, and then I think there's a way, I don't know the shortcut. I think there's a way without having to right click. And these are some of the things I have to learn. I got to go watch Cult's video again, because Cult, I think, demonstrated this. I think there's a way, is it Shift or Control? Control bypass instead of right click. No, I got to figure out a way to do that. Yeah, I guess you could do it that way. But there is a way to just turn one of them off and the other one on simultaneously, so you can go flip back forth. I just have to figure out how to do that. I know it can be done. I just don't know the shortcut yet. But I mean, it works. Really cool. So that's one way that's, to me, that is the fact that you don't need to go over there and unpatch one and repatch the other and then come back here. And by the time you come back here and listen to the second patch, you've already forgotten what the first one sounded like. That's where this is killer. That's where this is killer. You can also, which I haven't figured out, you can also molt and split things off by hitting this little arrow. You can split things off into different paths. I got to research that, read the manual more, and figure that part of it out. Down on my drum bus, you could do the same thing in stereo. So if I have just my drums playing, so you'll see I have the NG bus, the West Audio NG bus, and then I have the API 5500 EQ on that bus. That's kind of dialed in just a little bit, right? So same kind of thing. So I do notice when I do notice when you have a stereo unit, like on a stereo grouping you bypass, you hear not a hiccup, but you hear like a little, you know, when you bypass it, it like makes a little, I don't know what like, it almost sounds like white noise. It goes quickly. Doesn't do it on a mono track, only on a stereo track. Not really sure why that is, but it's not a big deal. Down here we have where you can mute the channel, I believe. Yeah, you can mute it completely. I think you can solo. Is that what this does? Not sure what the S does. Oh, okay. The S looks like it solos it. All right. I think this is to change the colors of the things that you colorized. But again, I mean, just so freaking unbelievably cool. So once you set up, like I said, once I set up this template with all of my ins and outs and all of my groups, I just saved it up here in the top. Well, you may not see, let me move it over so you can see it better on the screen. You can save a preset, right? So I saved a preset mix template 2025. So every time I start a new session, it'll default to mix template 2025. It'll give me a complete layout of all my ins and my outs. So I only have to do it once. They only had to do it once, and then all the gear will be cleared from the grid. And then you can save this. So at the end of the song being mixed, I can just hit save. I can overwrite it, and then I can do save as, and I can call this the name of the song, whatever, and then I can export the routing into a file, and then I could put that with my directory in my song, you know, with all of my with all the assets from the actual session. So you'll always have the routing file and saved as a preset, if you will. So when you bring that song back up, it'll bring all the routing right back. So you don't have to ever again go over and figure out which, you write down which things you patched everything into. All that goes away. Yes, if you change the gear, the settings on the gear itself, this is where the photos come in handy. You'll have to do that. But you don't have to change any patches. There's no more patch cables. All the patch cables are gone, which is just freaking brilliant. The other thing you can do with this, which again I haven't done, is they have these things along the bottom. Analog recalls, tracking recalls, session notes. And I think this is a feature of the new DX upgraded application that I'm not quite sure was in the first version. But basically you can, again, take photos and import all the tracking details if it, you know, you were tracking stuff, all the session notes, all the analog recalls, any photos that you're taking with your phone of the console or of the gear, all of that can stay inside of here. Again, is be a part of the package, which I have to test out. It's pretty cool. I haven't been able to get the phone to connect to the app. I don't know why that is. I might be doing something wrong on my end. I haven't figured that part of it out, but I only spent about 5 minutes trying to figure it out. What else can you do? Oh, so also on the Flock XT, which is cool for me anyway, is on the front of the unit itself to give you a pair of XLR ins and outs. And those are hardwired to the last two inputs and outputs on the Flock, which are channels 95 and 96. So even though 95 and 96 are hooked up in the back and they're hooked up to pieces of gear in the rack already, if I want to, let's say, get a demo gear piece of a demo equipment that comes in, right? I don't have to patch it into the back of the patch bay. I can run a pair of XLRs right off the front, right onto the gear, right over here on the side, do a demo, and then unplug it. And all I need to do on this app is just hit this button that says front inputs, front outputs. And what that does is that, well, whatever gear was patched in through the back of the Flock, channel 95, 96, it just deactivates it internally, and it now activates the front. And then when I'm done with that and I don't need the front inputs anymore, I just turn them off. And now my gear that was originally patched into those channel 95, 96 are now still hooked up to that gear, which is freaking great. So that's good for when you want to do, you know, gear demos. Or if you have a Flock, you have a musician brings in a piece of gear or whatever, and you just want to patch it in quickly, to be able to do it on the front of the unit is pretty good. The other thing they have here, again, that I've not done yet, they have these 6 buttons down here called Quick Recall 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would assume that's for if you wanted to, I'm not really sure, maybe assign one of your routing templates to it. Not sure what that does. Again, I got to read the manual and figure it out. I haven't assigned anything to that yet. So I suppose if you had, maybe if you had like a recording template and a mixing template or a mastering template, maybe you can put that on the quick recall buttons and then you can just recall the templates. That would kind of make sense to me if that's what it's for. And then inside you have a settings screen. You can set all kinds of user preferences, firmware updates, the manual, you know, quick setup guide, all of that. And then underneath that here in the bottom right-hand corner, it'll tell you if it's connected to the front. It says the host signal and it's lit up blue, which means that it's connecting and it's communicating. And on the front of the unit, the LED is a solid blue ring. That means that it's connecting. If it was flashing, that means I guess it's in sleep mode. And I think if it was flashing red, it means there's a connection issue. The way it connects is through USB. So there's USB off the back of the flock to the computer. And then there's a network cable as well. Although the network cable features, it came with the unit. There was a little information card that said that the Ethernet stuff is not online yet. It's being developed in a new firmware update, and it eventually will, so you can control this thing over your network. But I guess that's not currently active. Yeah, so that's pretty much the app. I mean, honestly, the app is pretty intuitive. When Dave and I first hooked this up yesterday, we only had to get the manual out for one thing. Aside from that, we were able to figure this out without even getting the manual out. I mean, it is pretty straightforward. It's just a grid, right? So the hardest thing is, and not hard, but the most time-consuming thing is writing down and setting up all your inputs and outputs in your studio and getting it into the hardware list. And once that's done, it's done. And then you can also, in case if you're worried about, well, what happens if this thing crashes and everything goes kaplooey? In the hardware list, you can export this file, which I did as like a backup. So if anything ever went weird, or if you had a factory reset the unit or whatever, you can load up that file and all of this will be back here, so I don't have to retype everything again. The other thing you can do here is you can color code these things as well. You can color code all your inputs and outputs, so you can, so you can see it better, and you can separate different pieces of gear, which I did. Also, too, each one of these things can either be paired or unpaired. So if it's a stereo unit left-right, let's say like the NG bus compressor, you can pair it, so you only have to drag the left side, and the left and right will both populate the grid. Or you can unpair it if you wanted to run it in dual mono, if your hardware does that, and then you bring the left and the right on separately. You can do all of that as well. So yeah, does anyone have any questions on the app itself? I think I walked through all the app's features as far as I know them, as I sit here less than 24 hours after looking at this for the first time. If you guys have any questions, I'll try to answer them. Let me scroll up a little bit. Now, what I'm going to ask you guys, well, you guys will watch the video on Tuesday, and I said it in the video, and I'll make sure that I say it here too. When you watch that unboxing video, if you have any questions around this system, or if you want to see me demonstrate certain things, specific things in upcoming videos, please leave it in those comment sections, because I'm going to gather up all that information and all the requests from you guys and try to create content around it. So if you're interested in one of these types of systems, you probably want to see as much of it as you can in real action before you make the decision, right? So I want to try to help you in that way if I can. So that'll be on Tuesday. Let's see. I'm going to try to check out some of these questions here. Braxel says, yeah, the outs on the front are great to patch an extra piece of gear. Yeah. Really, real much. Oh, here's the other thing that you don't see. Again, I'm telling you guys about things you're going to see in videos over the next 3 or 4 weeks. So above the XT, you'll see there is one Switchcraft patch bay with some patch cables on it. I don't know how well you can see it. Okay. One of the Switchcraft patch bays we did leave in place, and this is why we did it. Right now, the master bus is not in the flock at all. It's hardwired directly to the board through the patch bay. And the reason why we did it that way was because, again, we have 96 channels, right? 48 are being taken up by the console. 48 left over wasn't enough to handle all the gear as well as the master bus. We were going to come up about 6 channels short or 8 channels short. I forget what the number was. So we decided, well, how would you get around that? There's only 2 ways to get around it. One, do what we did. Certain pieces of gear don't go into the flock. They got to be manually patched because you can hook up a traditional patch bay to the flock. So if you don't have as much I/O and you want one of the smaller flock systems, maybe not the big boy like we have, but one of the smaller systems, and you want to integrate it with your current patch-based system, you can do that. If you want to do that, and on their website, they have some really good digital diagrams and stuff of how you lay it out and exactly how to hook it up. I will say the Flock Audio user guides and stuff are pretty good. Some of the better ones that I've seen, actually. But the reason why we did it that way was because we were going to run out of channels, and I wanted to get as much of the gear that I typically will switch around into this system as possible. So what we decided to do, because we only had the 96 channels, as I said, okay, the master bus for me doesn't typically change, right? It's going to be our master bus is as follows. Right now, the first thing it's hitting is that low end shaper, the Mammoth, that low end thing that you guys saw the video on a few weeks ago. That's first. Then from there, it's going to the Bus Plus, the SSL, which is up there that I've just quickly dialed in. I've used it for 5 minutes. Then from there, it's going to the Empress EQ, which is the Master Bus EQ. And then from there, it's going to the Neve NBT. That is all hardwired, daisy chained together into the front of the Switchcraft patch bay. It's not part of the flock system. If I wanted to have that as part of the flock system, I would have to get a second flock unit, and you can hook up, I think it's 4 of the flock units you can hook up together as one big system. I think it's 4. I'd have to research that, but you can definitely do more than one. So in order for me to handle all the I/O, I would not only need the XT, but I would need another one. Not an XT, but a smaller unit. And we don't have that. So I said, no, let's just keep the master bus out of the flock because, like I said, for me, that really doesn't change all that much. I guess it would be cool to swap out a master bus EQ every now and again and check it out. But that's my master bus pretty much stays the same. So for now, that's going to be good. So what that did is that freed up 8 channels that we didn't have to use in the flock. And that gave me the ability to put all the rest of the gear into the flock, and it all fit. And we had a couple of channels left over. So that's why you still see the Switchcraft patch bay with a couple of patch cables, is because we needed to put the master bus outside of the flock system, which is fine. The other thing that I did, the Audioscape Reverb always used to be a part of the Switchcraft patch bays, which honestly was kind of silly. I don't know why we did it that way. We probably just weren't thinking at the time. We were still new to all of this. That's hard. That was wired right to one of the stereo returns, effects returns on the board, and it never moves. I would never repatch the reverb. So we took that out of the patch bay, and I just hardwired it directly to the console, so the reverb is out of the loop as well. You can't patch, unpatch, or move the reverb around, which is fine. I don't do that anyway. So that gave us enough channels, again, left over to use the flock with all the rest of the other gear. So that's why there is a Switchcraft patch base still there. Braxel says that, Colt has his flock half in his I/O converter connected to the flock and the other half to the patch bay with most used gear in the flock. Great way to use a smaller flock. Yeah, I watched his video because I think you or someone told me he did a video on this, and I did watch it. Colt did a nice video. And you're right, he doesn't have all his gear in the flock. He has a smaller flock system, and then he has a traditional patch bay. So for him, that seems to work out well. So I know you can do that if you want. Malcolm says he suspects the options with the system are mind-boggling. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm only scratched the surface of what this thing is really capable of doing, from what I'm told. You can mult on this thing as well, but I haven't figured out how to do that yet. Did you get, did you have to get any more cables to hook up the flock? No, I didn't. Well, actually, not to hook up the flock, but I did have to get 2 cables to hook up the reverb to the board. Because the origin is all DB25 connectors, and the Switchcraft patch bay was all DB25 connectors, and the flock is all DB25 connectors. The cable that was going to the reverb originally, the send and return, the 2 cables were D sub to D sub. But now, since I hardwired the reverb only has XLR outs. So I had to pull the 2 D sub cables off the console, D sub to D sub, and I had to get a D sub to a breakout cable, XLR, male and female. So I had to buy those 2 cables to hardwire the reverb, and then that gave me 2 more, the two D subs I pulled off the console. Now I had 2 extra cables that I didn't have before. But as far as did I had to get any more cables specifically for the flock, the answer is no. As a matter of fact, we had a couple of cables left over because, as I said, we hardwired the master bus to it. So we didn't need those breakout cables anymore. So no extra cables. No extra cables. Yes, Malcolm, you can mult. The way you mult, apparently, and again, I haven't done it yet, I think it's with these little arrows here. So if I scroll back here to say path 1, which is channel 1, or I'll go channel 2 here. So you have the warm CL1B. If I hit this little arrow, apparently that means I can mult it to another path. I don't know how to do that. I haven't done that yet, but you can mult. I just have to figure that out. I haven't even figured it out yet. But yeah, you should be able to do it. The app seems intuitive for most part, other than seeing the one-click bypass. Yeah, it's super intuitive. It really is. I'm sure there's a shortcut. I got to do the one-click bypass. I know I can do it. I got to figure out how to do it. But yeah, it is very intuitive. Yes, I got the SSL Bus Plus. I got it from SSL. We're going to be doing some work with SSL. You're going to see that unboxing video in a couple of weeks. It's already done and recorded. But yes, SSL sent me a Bus Plus. It's in the rack. It's way up there somewhere. That is part of the master bus. We're going to do a bunch of videos for them on that, as well as some other videos on their audio interfaces. So we got a whole bunch of work we're going to be doing with SSL. So the Bus Plus is here. But other than I know that it works, I haven't even gone through any of it at all to figure out everything that it can do. That Bus Plus can do so much stuff, it's almost overwhelming. I got to take a look at it and really play with it. So it's like you called Sweetwater to order the new Waves NG tube compressor, draining your wallet. That's like $6,000, man. Yeah, I know, Braxley. You mentioned that to me. The Switchcrafts are going to stay here now for a while because, like I said in the unboxing video, and I got to really run this flock for 2 to 3 months every single day to make sure. My biggest concern is the stability of this thing. So far, it's been rock solid, but I've only been using it 24 hours. To know that every single day when I boot up this thing, that app is going to talk to that hardware to make sure that the hardware is rock solid. I have to be able to go back to a manual patch bay if something were to go wrong. And so I won't be selling those Switchcrafts anytime in the near future. It's probably going to be a solid year before I would even consider selling them. But yeah, no, I know you're interested and I appreciate that, but no, I got to hold on to them just in case, I'm surprised you didn't use DB25s to Cat 5 so your cable runs would be easier and less expensive. Well, the DB25, that wasn't, I don't even know if that was available, or I didn't know anything about that at the time of installing this console. So we already had all the cables, so I wasn't going to switch them out and go from DB25 to Cat 5. The cables have already been purchased 3 years ago. So, but yeah, going forward, I guess you'd want to do that. I have a great relationship. Well, I never had a bad relationship with SSL. I really didn't have any relationship with SSL. But the reason why I'm now with SSL or working with them, at least on this little small project to see how it goes, is that the new U.S. Sales and marketing guy, Rick Nofke, just joined SSL a few months back. He was my contact and the sales and marketing president or vice president for PreSonus for many, many years. And I did a lot of work with Rick over at PreSonus. So when he came to SSL, it was just natural that we were going to hook up. And then Rick introduced me to some folks over in the UK. When I've had some great meetings with them, and they've been very kind, and they've been very complimentary and very thankful of all the things I've done for the Origin and their products. And they've been kind of watching in the background. And they were very open to working together. So I'm really happy about that because I love SSL, and they're donating some gear to give away as part of our mixing contest over at Home Recording Made Easy sometime at the end of February. So I got a bunch of interfaces. I got a UC1 we're giving away. And so, yeah, they've been really cool. And because now they're all part of the Slate Digital family, they're going to be donating some bundles of the Complete Access Pass, which is all the SSL plugins and all the Slate Digital plugins. So all that stuff is going to be given away. So they were really kind. And when I told them the one thing that I hate about this Origin, there's actually two things. But the one thing, and we've talked about it before, was the one thing I don't like about the Origin is that when you use the bus compressor, let me switch back here for a second, and you can ask me more questions about, let me just get back here. There we go. So when you use the bus compressor in the console, and you have the master, you have the two bus insert point for all the gear. The insert point is always before the console compressor, always. So the console compressor is the last thing the signal hits before it goes back into the print track, which I didn't like. So that means that the SSL bus compressor, the console compressor, is always after your EQ. It's always after your stereo widening and your saturation on the MBT, which I didn't like. And I said to him, there's no way to reverse the insert point on this console. There just isn't. And I was telling them that when I was meeting with them. I said, I hate that about this thing. I really wish you guys would have put that in there. And they said, well, then what you really need is a Bus Plus, Dave. You need a Bus Plus, and then you don't have that problem. Don't use that compressor. Use this other compressor. Would you like to try it? And I says, yeah, I'd like to try it. How can I work with you on that? So that's how we got into that with them. And that's why I have a Bus Plus, because I want to put the compressor as the first thing it hits, then the MBT, not after. I like the order the other way around. Plus, the Bus Plus apparently has so many different things it can do and so much more flexibility than that compressor in there. At least that's what they tell me. So we're going to try it and figure it all out. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. Hi, DJI. How often do you do recalls? How long is that process, and how are you keeping track of it all? I do very few recalls. And the almost 4 years I've had this console, I've only done two. As a matter of fact, I have a whole video, and I'm actually going to follow it up with another video because it's been 3 years since the first video, where I talk about recalls. And I said, I don't do recalls. I just don't do them. I don't have a real need to do them. It's so infrequent that I don't need to do them. But how do I do it? And how do I keep track of it if I do need to do it? Real simple, kind of old school. So I take, I think, 6 pictures of the board with my iPhone so I can see all the pots and all the faders, high resolution pictures that I then put into a folder that travels with the song session if I ever need to see the console again and where the console was set. And then I take pictures of the hardware. And then I would have, prior to the flock, I would have a good old track sheet, old school, handwritten track sheet you don't need anymore. And that was all just for the patch points. But now with the flock, you don't need that. So if I had to recall it when I was using a manual patch bay, I've only had to do it twice. And one time I really didn't need to do it, but I wanted to do it because it was the first time I was going to do it, and I wanted to see how long the process would take. It took about 40 minutes to recall the whole thing. The board and the hardware took about 40 minutes. It's about what it took. And so I have a process on how to do it, but I really don't do it. I really don't have a need to do it. I never really get asked to do it. But the way I keep track of it all, DJ Lee, is pictures of the board. Now I have the flock with all the routing, and all that stuff will travel with the Studio One session, and all the files. It'll just sit there in there, and if I ever need to pull it back up, I pull it back up. But yeah, go watch the video on the channel. Just search my Mixing Music Analog channel, search Recall, it'll pop up and you'll see it. You'll see how I talk about all of that. And I'm gonna do a follow-up video to that because I've had people ask me, it's been almost 4 years since I've made that video. Is all that information that I said in that video still the same? So we're gonna go back over it point by point, probably in the next month or so, to tell people whether or not is that video still true to what I do today, 4 years later, now that I have, a more dialed in workflow. So anyway, so I don't worry about recalls. It's so infrequent, I don't even worry about it. Yeah, we'll do that at one point. We'll do that at one point. The only difference is that I know that's going to be different is that supposedly the Buzz Plus has way more different sounds in it. It's supposed to be way more, you can do more with it, I guess. I mean, I hope so. With all the buttons that are on that damn thing, you would hope it would do more than that compressor. So we're gonna check it out. We're gonna see. We're gonna see. But so far, the Flock XT is working. I have to work with it more. I'm glad the audio is working over the live stream, so then we can do some live stream gear demonstrations. That's the next thing I want to try to do, and be able to A/B stuff on certain elements using the Flock. That's going to open up a whole nother world of possibilities to what we could do on live streams and what I could even do in videos and content. It's as easy as auditioning plugins, really. So that'll be cool. That'll be really cool. DJI says he's currently trying to do a hybrid setup with a full automatic recall. So I'm glad hardware's becoming recallable. Yeah, there's a lot, not a lot, but there's quite a bit of the digitally controlled hardware out there now, like Wes Audio, some of the Neve stuff, and I'm sure there's others, Better Maker. Yeah, there's others, I'm sure, where now everything is recalled. If you have to do lots of recalls. But what I always try to tell people, and like I said in the video, I find it, to me, the whole point is again, it's just one guy's opinion, so take it for what it's worth. The object of the game for me isn't trying to build a system to make my recalls easier. The object of the game for me is to not have to do as many recalls. And if you go watch that video, and if you get better at your process, and you get better at working with clients, and you get better at what you do, the recalls should be few and far between. And so that's just the reality of it for me. If you're working in a situation, let's say you're working with labels or something where, the TV and film world or whatever, where there's just no way to get around having to recall things several times for multiple reasons, then I tell people you really don't want to have all this analog shit. Stay all in the box. But if you're going to work hybrid or work analog, I try to figure out a way to not have to do recalls. Like I said, it's been 4 years. I've only done 2. And honestly, I only really needed to do 1. I did the other one, as I said, because I wanted to do it for myself. I don't do them. And it's not that I refuse to do them. I don't get clients asking me to do them. And that's just the truth. Go watch the video and you'll see why. But you can recall if you need to recall. I think the industry is going in the way of auto-recallable gear. You will still have to use the knobs. If you want to mix several songs in various stages, you can with recallable gear. Yeah, that's true. That's true. If you need to work on several songs at once at various stages, I've never worked like that. I just don't like working that way. I don't want to start 15 different things at once. I want to do something, finish it, move on. That's just the way I've always worked, even in the box. But if you don't work that way, or if you can't work that way, that's cool. Then yeah, then digital recall gear and staying more inside the box and out of the box is probably better for you. No question about it. No question about it. But that's just not the workflow that I have, so I don't really need to worry about that stuff. You know, that at least at this point in my journey, if that ever changes, yeah, then I'll probably have to change and I'll have to rethink some things. Can you link the flock to the stream? Oh, that's a good, here, you know what I got here, George? I got a bunch of questions as I'm working with this, and ideas and issues and questions around this flock that I'm going to communicate with Darren, the owner. He's just getting back from NAMM, so I'm going to wait a bit next week. But that's a great question. I'm going to write that down. I don't know. That's a great question, and if it can, that would be killer. So I'm going to write that down. Can you use a Stream Deck? These are the kinds of things in the unboxing video that you guys watch on Tuesday. If you guys have any questions or anything you want me to investigate, put them in that comment section, okay? Because I'm going to get the answers for you guys. And then at one point, probably in a month or two after I've used this for a while, I've already spoken to Darren from Flock. He's going to come live on a live stream so you guys can ask him any question you want about his products. And I know he just put out a bunch of new products at NAMM. I don't know what the hell they are, but he's got some new stuff coming out. So if you guys have any questions around his stuff, especially the inner workings and how they're doing all that shit inside, because honestly, I don't know. He'll be here to answer questions. So yeah, I'm going to ask about the Stream Deck, George. That's a great question. Hey, Kevin. Little late to the party, but I hope your day is going well. It is. Thank you, butter. From the sound of things, the XT is working out pretty well for you so far. It's only been 24 hours. So far, so good. So far, so good. But we'll see. In a week, do I come back and say the whole thing went kaplooey? I hope not. I don't think so, but so far, I'm highly impressed with it so far. I haven't even mixed a full song with it yet. I'm going to do that this week. Oh, you're usually mixing 5 to 7 songs at once. Okay, well then yeah, then you have a different workflow consideration for sure. I don't typically do that. And you really can't do that when you're working with an analog console. I mean, I guess you could if you want to recall it all the time. But most guys that work with full analog desks, they're not working on 7 songs at the same time. You just can't. But if you have a workflow, man, that's critical for you and the way you work and people you're working with and for, then yeah, then you have to really be concerned about recall, and you really got to be concerned about digitally controlled hardware. And you probably don't want a console. You probably want more like a DAW controller, maybe with some outboard gear, would be my guess, right? And where digitally recall is or digitally controlled hardware makes sense. Yeah. Braxel says he bets you can hook it up to a Stream Deck. Yeah. I got to figure that out, man. I got a Stream Deck in the back I'm not using that I could put right here. That would be cool. I wonder if you can do that to use the Stream Deck to do the bypass thing we were doing, right? I'll find out. I'll find out. That's a great question. Does the mouse ball ever make your wrist uncomfortable? I need to put a riser at the bottom of it so my wrist isn't always tilted up. No, Jake. Hi, Jake. How are you, brother? No, the trackball, because the way this is angled and my wrist rests perfectly on the console, it never does. It never does. Not for me. Yeah, mix a song till you finish it. That's what I do. Well, that's what I have to do on a desk. Right? So if I pull a song up on the desk and I'm working with a client to mix a song, I mix it, I send it to them. They tell me if they want any changes. We make those changes. I send it back. They sign off on it. They say, yeah, it sounds great. I send them all the files. Project done. Why do we have to go back and recall it? Because normally when I work with clients, like, again, it's not a rush. So if I send you a song, you don't have to get back to me in 2 hours. I tell them, look, man, Sit with it for a day or so, pass it around to the band, listen to it in a bunch of different places, make sure you're happy. Because once we pull it from the console, to go back is a pain in the ass. I can do it. And honestly, I to be totally honest, and it's on my website, so it's not something I hide. If after we've signed off a project, if you're my client, we'll use James as an example. If James is my client, I mix his song, we go back and forth, I get it the way he wants it. He says, yes, I love it, send it to me. I send it to him. And then a week later, he wants to come back and he goes, you know what, let's turn down the overheads a little bit in the mix. No problem, we could go back, but I'm gonna charge him for probably 2 hours of work because it takes about 2 hours to bring everything up, do all the changes, send it all back. So that's why I always give the client a good amount of time to make sure you're happy. I'm not in a big rush, right? If I have to leave it up on the console for a couple of days, it's okay. It's not a big deal. I want to make sure they're happy because I don't want to go back and have to pull it up and recall it, right? So when you work that way, and as long as your client knows that on the front side of the project, again, go watch the video. I talk you all through how it's not a recall video showing you how I do it. It's a recall video explaining to you my process of how I work with clients and how I book jobs so I don't have to recall. That's the name of the game for me. But I got to tell you, even when I used to mix all in the box with plugins, and I did that for 15 years, whatever, however long it was, I've done thousands of mixes over 15 years in the box before I ever had any of this stuff. I could count on one hand the amount of time after we've signed off the project, as I said, that I ever had a client come back to me and say, we got to pull it back up and change something. I mean, I only can remember a couple of times that has ever happened. And in the box, as you all know, it's easy. I don't have to, right? I never had to do that. And I've done thousands and thousands of mixes over the years. I've never had to have a client do that. A couple of times I remember it happening, and it was for different things. It was for, member got kicked out of the band, new member came in, they wanted to put his part on the record. There was a couple of times with those kinds of circumstances, okay, we recalled it because we had to put a new part in. But aside from that, I never had it happen all in the box, really. So if I didn't have it happening all in the box, why would it happen when I'm working mostly analog? It shouldn't happen. If you manage the project right, and if you manage the client's expectations right, and you give them the ample amount of time they need to make sure that they're happy before you give them the final files, and you have good communication back and forth to make sure that they're happy, what do we have to recall for? And that's how I look at it. Now, again, if you're like, was it James up there? Or was it James or DJ? If you're up there and if you're working in a different situation where you need to be working on 4 or 5 songs at once because you're working with different clients or different types of companies or, like I said, TV and film, that's a different ball game. Then you're in a different type of workflow. You're in a different situation than me. Then if I was in that situation and I had to be able to bring up songs multiple at a time, then you're right. You don't want any of this. You don't want any of this. But I don't work that way. So I just finish the stuff. I work with the client. The client never seems to have a problem. They never have to come back. But I do have a process. And if they do have to come back, I can recall it. But I don't do that. I don't do it. Hey, Robert Booth, how are you, buddy? Maybe you save your groups of instruments as stems, and so it's on a full recall. Yeah. You could do that too, Braxel. I could print the stems in this particular desk. I could print in all 48 channels, direct in, back in real time, one pass, and everything syncs right up. I can pre-treat everything, pre-mix everything, print it all back into the DAW, put all the faders in the DAW at 0, and that's the mix. And then if someone wants to change something, you just do it in the DAW. You could do that. That is one way to make that process even simpler. I don't even do that. I don't even do that. I don't need to. But you're absolutely right. That's a way to do it with analog if you want to do it. You can print everything back in, or I could print in my groups or my stems, and then you could just do a minor tweak. Yeah, you could do that. But I got to be honest, I don't even do that because I've never had to do it. But I could. That is another way to do it. You're right. You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. So that's great. So yes, I got a question about the Stream Deck. I'm going to find that out because that would be cool if you could do this thing with a Stream Deck. That'd be killer. It's never going to be the same because you have to turn off the mix bus before the export. Right. So the stems are not the same anymore. If you leave the mix bus off, then it'll sound different. Right. That's true. That's true. That's true. Yep. That's true. So what you would do is you print it all in without the mix bus. And then then you can either do the mix bus in the box of plugins. I mean, there's ways around it. There's ways around it. But again, I don't even, like I said, for me, I don't want to figure out how to make it easier to do a recall. I would rather use that energy to figure out how I can get better at my job and get better at my process so I don't have to recall. It's as simple as that. Some people say that's crazy, it's not possible. I could tell you for 4 years it's been possible, and I don't have a problem. But that might change one day, who knows? Oh, hey, I have 5 patch units. You do? Wow. I think the older ones have loud fans. Okay. Welcome to the channel, by the way. You have 5 patch units? What, do you have them like all daisy chained together? Give us a little more info. That's interesting. Now you have the older units, maybe they had louder fans. I can tell you that the fan in this thing is not loud. Now again, it's sitting 6 feet away from me. Can I hear it? I mean, no, I mean, I don't hear it. So I don't know, maybe the older ones did. But I had no problem. So far anyway, I have no problem. They need to have an empty space above and below it. Well, I have one empty space below it, not above it. Oh yeah, actually we do. It's about a half a space. But the rack that it's in is very shallow. So the whole back hangs out and it's got tons of ventilation around it. Ton of open space around it. It's not a deep rack. It's a very shallow rack. So I would say 2/3 of the back of the flock are out beyond the back of the rack, completely wide open. So maybe that's why. Now I also have the fan in the app. You can change the fan setting. You can turn it off, which I wouldn't recommend you do. You can put it on emergency mode, which means it'll be off until it gets to a certain temperature, then kick on. Or you can put it in low or medium continuous running. I have mine on the highest setting, continuous. And like I said, I don't hear it. In the installation video that you guys will see in a few weeks, at the very end of the video, I actually put my iPhone right up to it with a decibel meter. I think as loud as it got was 30 dB, which is below ambient noise in the room. And that's if you put an iPhone right up to the back of the fan. I mean, right up to it. It was at like 30 dB. But again, sitting 6-8 feet away from it, I don't hear it. I don't hear it. I heard a lot about the flock units. Yeah, they're cool. What little I know. But we're going to learn more about it. So far, I'm highly impressed with it. You got to figure out a couple of little quirky things with the iPhone app and that kind of stuff. And, you know, some of you asked about the Stream Deck and those kinds of things. I got to figure out, is there a quicker way to bypass stuff? And I want to figure out how to mult and some of those things. But aside from that, so far, it works really good. Oh yeah, you were at Hansa Studios and your last record, right? And you forgot to turn off the mix bus on the stems. The house engineer was next to me, no recall, and no stems for me anymore. It was an expensive lesson. Yeah. Yeah, you have to turn off the mix bus if you're going to print it all in. And then you can just run the mix bus in the box if you really need to. I mean, I guess it's one way to do it, right? That's one way to do it. So yeah, so that's it, man. So that's what's going on here. I'm going to work with this more and more. More videos will come. We'll do some more live streams. We'll do some updates. Once I get a little bit more comfortable with it, we'll do a live stream where we actually mix with it. We'll swap all the gear in and out. I'll figure out some of the little quirky things. If there are some quirky things, I'll have it running, a little bit longer to see, is it stable? Does the application talk to the unit and it's stable every single time? Or is sometimes to have some quirkiness between, then that's the one thing that I worry about. And again, I'm hoping that I'm just being a worry wart and there's nothing to worry about. But the one concern that I do have with a system like this, and it's the same thing with the Wolf Audio, they have an application that talks to the box too. If the communication between that app and that hardware isn't rock solid, consistent every day, all day long, and it's kind of finicky and fluky, then it makes this system a real pain in the ass to work with. I have no reason to believe that it's not going to be stable. Out of the research that I've done and just talking to people before I got involved in this thing and reading some comments, I've never heard anybody complain about that particular problem. So I'm hoping there is going to be no problem. But that would be my biggest concern. I guess my other concern would be over time, and again, I don't know much about this. These are questions we have to ask Darren, is I don't really know what's the lifespan of these boxes? If something breaks in that box, your whole studio's down, right? Now, if you're working with a good reputable company, which I'm going to assume Flock is, or anybody else in that space, they would just send you out a new unit right away and swap the unit out so they can fix yours or whatever, you know what I mean? So you're not down more than a day. So as long as you had that kind of support, I guess that would be critical. Or worst case scenario, like I said, if you have the regular patch bays like I do, you can always put the other patch bay system back in, unplug the Flock, put all the connectors back into your regular patch bay, and you're back off and running. It's a pain in the ass. You're going to lose a day of wiring and unwiring and all of that, but it's doable, I guess. So you hope you don't run into that scenario, but I guess, anything can break, right? I mean, your monitors can crap out, your console can go, I mean, anything can happen, right? So I guess it could. Let's hope that it doesn't do that. I don't have the Stream Deck with the knobs. I think I have the one with just the push buttons, Braxel, but I know they have a new one out with push buttons and knobs. I got to see if you can use one with this thing first and then get the appropriate Stream Deck if it's going to make it easier so I don't have to do things with a mouse. If I can, yeah, if we can do that, that would be cool. But I don't have it with the knobs. Could the Flock units be used with the Big 6 or similar class console, bring hybrid workflow to a small scale analog? Yeah, I would think it could. Why couldn't it? Sure it could. The Flock unit can be used, if you've got one of the smaller units, it could be used with a Big 6, it could be used with an analog, and you don't even have to have a console. You can just have your audio interface with your I/O. Say you had an audio interface with, say, 16 in, 16 out, right? Line in, line outs. You take your 16 out, you go to your patch bay, your Flock, you hook up all your gear, and then you come back into your audio interface. You don't need to use a console with it, but you could. And yeah, it would work exactly the same way. It would work exactly the same way. Yeah. Now, their smaller units are way more affordable. I mean, again, affordable. What's affordable? So their smaller units, I think, are like, what, $3,000 maybe? They're in that ballpark. So even their smallest unit, you know, we're talking thousands. We're not talking hundreds, right? Compared to a manual patch bay, it's different. I mean, it's way more expensive. But to answer your question is, yeah, it should work. You don't have to have a big system like this. What was interesting and the reason why I wanted to work with Darren and Flock and why they wanted to work with us and all that was you don't see anyone on YouTube, nobody, that has incorporated the large XT unit with this much I/O, console and all that gear. No one. Nobody. I think Colt Caparoon probably has one of the larger systems that I've seen. And his system, from an I/O perspective, compared to this, is small. And he has a good sized system. But as we said a little earlier, he is not running all of his gear into the Flock. He's only running a portion of it. I think he has the other portion in his manual patch bay because he does tracking and he does mixing. So his setup's a little different. But there was nobody that was doing it on this scale. Although, in speaking with Flock, they say they sell, again, that's what they told me, they sell quite a few of these XT units to big studios. But those guys aren't YouTubers. They're not making YouTube videos. So he says they're in, that this is not the first, we're not the first ones to do this. We're the first ones to do this on YouTube, to show that, yes, you can do it. But you can do it at any scale. Yeah, I would think you could. You should be able to. There's a dark roll over your right shoulder. A great place for more gear. No, that's actually a doorway going out to the back of the studio, so we can't clutter that up. No, we don't need any more gear. Here's the thing. I would need a second Flock if I wanted more gear, and we're not doing that. We're not doing that. All of those Flocks are out of my price range. Yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. It's expensive. It's expensive. But it's, you know, again, depending on your situation, in this business, time is money. And this makes patching and unpatching and just mixing way faster because I don't have to patch anything. And the best part about it for me, at least from what my limited use of it is the fact that I never have to leave the sweet spot to try different pieces of gear. I never have to leave the perfect listening position to listen to two pieces of gear side by side on a single unit. That, to me, is the part that makes this whole thing worth it. For me. But you're right. For a lot of folks, it's a big price tag. It's a big price tag. It is. I see you're using the S1 as the DAW. Studio One, yeah. Why do you like Studio One versus Cubase? I have both. Cubase is a lot deeper MIDI functionality. Yeah, Cubase is great. I used to use Cubase before Studio One, back in the days of Cubase. I was a Cubase user when it was SX1, SX2. I stopped using Cubase around Cubase 4 and went to Studio One. It wasn't that I'll tell you why I switched. I remember why now. At that time, the only DAW that was on the market that was true 16-bit, I think it was, or 32-bit at the time, was Studio One. Cubase wasn't. I think that's what it was. Where Cubase, at that time, the limitations of Cubase, you were only using so much of your memory and processor in your computer. Where Studio One, you were using the full thing. I think Studio One was 32-bit, the other one was 16-bit. I don't remember, but it was something around that. That was the first reason. That was the reason why I originally left Cubase, is because Studio One, I was able to take full advantage. And again, we're talking about 2008, 2009, when the computers are nothing like they are today. To be able to take full advantage of, at that time, the $6,000 Mac Pro that I had in my studio. Cubase wasn't utilizing all the resources in it at the time. Studio One was. And Studio One and Cubase, from a functionality point of view, especially back then, were very similar to each other. So the learning curve was really non-existent. And so that's why I made the switch originally. But I think Cubase is a great DAW. Cubase, you say, has a lot more deeper MIDI functionality. That might be true. I don't use that functionality for what I do, so that's not a real super requirement for me. But I like Cubase too. I like it a lot. I think it's a great DAW. I really do. But I've been a Studio One user for 12, 13 years now, and I'm so used to it that there's no reason for me to switch. But I have some friends that use Cubase. They think it's fantastic, and it is. I have friends that use Logic. That can work really well too. All the DAWs are good. But that's why. It was just because at the time, Studio One was better suited for what I needed at that time. That's not an issue anymore, but it's been so many years. There's no reason for me to go back to Cubase. Too bad there's not a way to get all that gear closer to you. Well, there is if I want to pull it closer to me. There is, but then I'm going to get back to feeling claustrophobic. But here's the other thing that's interesting that I'm starting to do. And I want to do more of this to eliminate even having to go dial the gear in. A lot of this gear has a sweet spot. And when you find the sweet spot of that gear, you can drive it less or more hard. Did I say that right? With just from the gain on the console. And that's what I'm starting to get more hip to. So you're not constantly changing the gear, right? You drive it from the desk. You want more compression, drive it from the desk harder. You want less compression, drive it from the desk a little less hard. And you don't ever have to change the gear. A lot of pro-level engineers do that. It may not work on every single piece of gear in every single instance, but more than half of their gear is. More than half of their gear is. They have their go-tos. They have certain things they use on certain elements that they just like, and they got it set up and they never change the settings. Then the gear doesn't need to be right next to you. And that's what I'm trying to do more and more. But, I mean, I could put that gear closer to me, but I like having, it's maybe hard to see on camera, but I like the openness here. You know, for too many years, I worked in a very tight space and everything was all over me. I don't like that. So what I'm trying to do is maybe tweak the gear a little less, although you'll never get away from it completely. You're totally right about that. So anyway. Yeah, like the West Audio stuff, you just tweak it from the plugin. Then you don't ever have to go over there, which is true. What's nice about Studio One version 7 is the seamless integration with Clip Launcher. Wish Cubase had that. Yeah, Clip Launcher is an Ableton thing, right? That's a new version of Studio One 7, a new feature in Studio One 7 that I don't use. I have no use for that at all, me personally. But people that were performing live with the Clip Launcher, they would use Ableton Live. And those folks, they wanted to grab that part of the market. They wanted to try to convert those Ableton users over to Studio One. And they added that clip launcher, and that is really cool. Again, I just have no use for that personally, and I don't think Cubase has that. But like I said, all these DAWs are really good. They're all good. They really are. It's just a matter of what you like. So, you know. Anyway, what else? What else we got going on? We got 31 people here. This is great. How long have we been on here? A little over. If you have any more questions, please ask me now. Let me know if you have any more questions at all about this stuff. I'm going to research it more and more. I'm going to play with it more and more. And I'm going to report back and let you know how it is. And let you know if it actually ends up staying in the studio or not. It's going to be a while, though. Yeah, Cubase has Atmos. So does Studio One. Again, I don't use it, but they have it, which is cool. Clip launchers are also very good for electronic music production. Yeah. Builds ideas quickly. Yep. I don't produce that kind of music. So no, you're right though. Yeah, you're right. A lot of the electronic music producers and stuff, the clip launcher is really a really good way to work, good workflow. So yeah, so that's just not what I do. But yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. So yeah, man, so I appreciate you guys coming on here, and I'm glad that the audio through the DAW worked. I'm glad that worked, because I was worried that we weren't ever going to get that right, but I'm glad that worked. I will figure more out about this about this Flock XT system, and then we're going to do stuff on the Bus Plus, and you know how it is. It's going to be all kinds of content here. The Flock, just internally switching, no conversion, no digital no conversion to digital. From what I'm told and what I've read, there's no conversion happening in that Flock. I don't believe. If someone knows something different, I'd have to read that, but I believe you are correct. I believe you are correct. My view on Atmos. We've talked about that a bunch. I don't work in it. You know, again, it's the new thing in the room for the last 3 or 4 years. I know it's it's in some circles it's a big thing, and you know, I don't know that it's ever going to take over the stereo mix. Is it ever going to dominate that? I don't think so in music, but I don't know. I could be wrong. Right. I could tell you that I have yet to have a client even ask me about doing a Dolby mix. So I have no demand for it whatsoever. But I'm not working with, major label clients. So if you're working with major label clients and there's a real need for that, then I think Dolby's cool. I think it's cool. I think it's really cool. I just don't have, and it's not that I would never want to work in it and just learn it and play with it, because it is a really cool thing. I don't have the right room for it. I just don't have the desire to go down that road. But I think it's really cool. Is it gonna dominate the audio world as far as, because Dolby's been around and Atmos has been around in films and in movies forever. Is it going to dominate and take over the 2 stereo mix? So everyone's going to be Dolby all the time? I don't think so. At least not any time in the near future. I could be wrong about that. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll end up working in Dolby, but right now I have no real need for it. I have no one has ever asked me about it as far as, when they hire me to mix their stuff, can I do a Dolby mix? No one's even ever asked me. But I do have a couple of engineers that I know that are setting up and have been set up in Dolby rooms that they mix solely in Dolby. And so I have some people that I would trust that I could subcontract it out to if I needed to have a client's mix. If I had to deliver them stems so they can mix it in Atmos, I can get it done for someone. But I don't know that I'm ever gonna work in it. At least not in the near future. That could change, but if I was going to do it, I would have to be in a different room. It would have to be a room that was purpose-built for Dolby to do it right. And yeah, the expense of that, if I've never had anybody even ask me for it, the return on investment would be, there wouldn't be any, at least for me. So I think it's really cool. I think it's still in its infant stages. What you like about the Scene Arranger is the XY number of times and YZ. Oh, cool. I have seen the audio. I've seen it, and I've seen it online like you have, but I have not heard it. There's no plans for one to come here as far as I know. I don't think so. I don't have a need for one because I already have a stereo Pultec, but I did see it. It looks really cool. Hey, Guitar Bass Dude, what's going on? First time here. Welcome to the stream. I'm glad you're here. I've had a hard time seeing it take off. You mean Atmos? Well, again, it depends on who you talk to. There's people in the industry that will swear by this stuff and that it's here to stay and that everybody's got to get into it and all that. And then I talk to other people that say, like me, I haven't even had one client ever even ask me about it. So I just think it's a cool thing. And I think if you're in engineering, you want to learn it and get involved in it because it is super cool. It's great. And now the gear and the cost of getting into that with the right controllers and the right interfaces and all that are starting to come down in price. And even the speaker systems are starting to come down in price, that it maybe makes it more feasible. Where at first everything was ungodly expensive. But yeah. But I'm just haven't been involved in it yet. Surprised no one's asked me to do an Atmos mix. Not one. Not one person. Not one. And then again, like you say, an artist, do they have the budget to pay for it? That's the other thing. It's easy to, say, I'd like to have an Atmos mix. Well, that's more work to be done. That means there's more money that has to be paid. And again, if you're not working with big time clients that have the budgets, and you're working with indie artists and people that are, it's a lot for them just to hire me to work on their stuff, let alone do stuff like that. I don't know. But maybe one day people will. And like I said, if I do get, an occasional Dolby request, Atmos request, I do have 2 engineers that I would certainly send stems to, because I know their work is really good and I could get it done for somebody. But again, if there's a fee, right? Obviously there's a fee to do it. Now I know there's new technology and new consoles and new ways where, that are making it to where you can do the stereo mix, or you could do the Dolby mix and it folds down the stereo and all that, and you only have to do one mix. And I still think the verdict's out on that. I don't know much about that yet, but I would imagine at one point that might be true, or maybe you mix it in Dolby to start and then it folds down the stereo. I've heard people say that it works well, and I've heard other people say it doesn't work well. So it's just like anything. It's really difficult when you try to research some of this shit on the internet, because people get on the internet and they just say stuff with no experience. And so I don't like to do that. I like to talk to people that actually work with this stuff in person, that I know that if they're telling me something about it, it's maybe just their opinion, but I know at the very least they put their hands on the stuff. The internet's filled and the forums are filled with people talking. What do we call them? The keyboard warriors. They're talking. And a lot of them don't even know what the hell they're talking about. Some do, I'm sure, but there's a lot that don't. And so I'm really careful about researching that stuff. But there may be a time, and maybe there already is, I'm just not aware of it, that, maybe you mix it all in Dolby and it folds right down the stereo and it's beautiful. I don't know. Maybe. And then maybe you don't have to charge extra for the Dolby mix because there's no extra time being spent. I don't know. Maybe we'll get to that point. I have no idea. And who knows, maybe one day you'll see me here working in Atmos. And if I do, I'll tell you about it. You haven't had a single client even know what it is. Well, I'm sure people are going to know who it is. Thank you very much, Mr. Michael. I really do appreciate the kind words. Malcolm says in the early 70s we had quad. Malcolm, you're showing your age now, brother. 4-channel sound that didn't last very long. Right. Laserdisc didn't last very long either. I think Atmos is here to stay because you got the big companies like Apple and Spotify, and the technology is different. Back in those days, right, Malcolm, there was no internet, there were no streaming services, there was none of that shit. It was more for consumer base who wanted to listen to really cool stuff in their home theaters. But now, today, things are different. And so I think Atmos will probably continue to grow in the industry, maybe at a slower pace than people are talking about, but I think it'll slowly inch its way. Where it ends up, who knows? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I just worry about stereo. But who knows? Maybe one day, I don't know. Mixing for movie soundtracks, perhaps. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Music for artists, I think, will just fade out. You could be right. You could be right, Malcolm. You could be right. I don't know. I agree with you. If you're mixing, scoring and soundtracking for movies and stuff, that's been around forever. Then I think Dolby Atmos is a way bigger deal, right? But just stereo for regular art, for regular music, I don't know. For every one person that says it's going to kind of die out, there's one person that says it's here to stay, man, and it's only going to get more relevant in our industry. I guess time will tell, right? I guess time will tell. You haven't heard a full down that sounds nearly as good as stereo. Okay, so you actually have heard someone take a Dolby mix, fold it down the stereo, and you didn't like the results? Like, you have real experience with that? I've heard that, but I've also heard people say the exact opposite of that. I've never experienced it, so I'm not going to tell you what I think is real. I'm just telling you, I've heard people say what you say, and I've heard people say the exact opposite of that. How do you reconcile those two opinions? I guess maybe because it's so subjective, right? That it's hard, that maybe what doesn't sound good to you may sound perfect to them. I don't know. But that is, I would love to hear, I don't have any, I would love to experience what you're suggesting. I would love for someone to mix it really in stereo, like just do a real stereo mix, right? Like you normally would. And then have it mixed again in Atmos and fold it down and listen to the two stereo mixes. They might be exactly the same. They may not be. I'd have no idea. Michael says when he grows six more ears, he'll get Atmos. There you go. Attaboy. I don't know. It also could be a generational thing. I don't know how old everyone here is watching tonight, but I just think about people. I think about anybody over the age of 40. I tend to think anyone over the age of 40, unless you're really into the new technology and you get into it, we're probably more, have a more negative feeling about this whole Atmos thing and whether it's really going to succeed than maybe the new cats coming up in their 20s. Right? Because they're growing up with this thing being here. And it's just part of what they're learning, right? Whereas us, this is like a thing it's kind of been dumped on us in a way. And I wonder if that's some of it. As us older folk start to migrate out of the business and all the new guys and gals coming up in the next decade or so, will they have a totally different opinion about this? I don't know. Right? Interesting. James says in music, Atmos is like VR music, video. Good idea, but you need the tools to enjoy it. Yeah, I've always said that. But if they build a card system for Atmos, that is different. Yeah, I've always said that one of the big things that I think holds it back, and I've heard people like Andrew Sheps talk about this a little as well, and he's a huge proponent. He's like of this Atmos. He believes it's the newest thing and it ain't going anywhere. But I have heard him say in recent times, which is something that I was saying, so it was good to kind of hear him say this as well. The problem is most people listen to music today on headphones and earbuds and telephones, right? So until you can strap something on your head that gives you the same sensation of the Atmos as when you're sitting in a room with 12 speakers or 15 speakers or whatever the number is, or get close to that sensation and that feeling, because the consumer consumption device for Atmos hasn't been developed yet, when that happens, then I think the game changes. When that happens. Can that happen? Is the technology even possible? Is the way the human ears are and the way we hear things, is that even possible? I have no idea. But I'll tell you what, when I see some of this shit they're doing with AI and everything else and robots and stuff, it wouldn't surprise me if in the next 5 years, Apple comes out with a set of headphones that when you listen to a Dolby mix on headphones, not a binaural mix, I mean a real Dolby mix, that it sounds like it does when you're sitting in a room with all those speakers. If that happens, game over. Then everybody's going to be mixing in Atmos. But until that happens, I don't know how Atmos really, outside of what we just talked about, films, TV, movies, big label artists, then I don't know how that becomes super, super popular because people can't consume it the way they listen to music, which is mobile. In the car, little different story now. Little different story in the car. That could be another game changer, right? So I don't know. It's interesting. Like I said, I try to follow it and listen to people that, again, and I try to listen to people that are in it, that are doing it, that are actually in it and working with it every single day. not the keyboard jockey who just criticizes stuff or says positive stuff when they've never even stood in the room with a Dolby Atmos system. I mean, guys that work with it every single day. Those are the guys I listen to because they know, they're in the know. They're in the know more than me. But we'll have to see. Have to see. Hey, Paul, how are you, brother? It'll be nice to see the younger generation invest a little more time in music for music listening. I second, third, and fourth that. I'll tell you what, there used to be a time, again, it depends on your age. I don't know how old you are, Paul, but I know James and I know Malcolm and I know kind of how old they are. And they're in my generation, or I'm in their generation, where, you know what? There used to be a time where we would take, hold on a second. Where we would take this beautiful thing called a record. Remember the records? Where you would pull out the thing, right? Remember the records? Where we put it on the turntable, we get out our brush and we clean it, right? Make sure we clean our little cartridge with that little brush to clean any dust or lint off. You put it down. You actually sit in a chair in front of your speakers with your jacket, right? You're flipping and you're looking at all the pictures and you're reading all the liner notes. And for 45 minutes, 20-something minutes on each side, right? Flip it over. And for 45 minutes, you're actually sitting down in a chair, focused on listening and using the stuff that comes with it as an experience. That's how I grew up with music. I still listen to music that way. You can't see it, but over here, I have you see it on some of my YouTube videos. I have an entire vinyl collection with a turntable, and this is how I like to listen to music. But for most people, great album, by the way. If you're a guitar player, James, you're a guitar player. British Blues by Joe Bonamassa, live. But for most people, these days are gone. These days are gone. They don't listen to music like that anymore. So even though you can put for reasonably affordable, you could put a Dolby room, you could put a Dolby system in your house and you can listen to Dolby in your living room or in your home theater or whatever. And it's not very expensive to do it anymore. The problem is people don't take the time to sit down and listen to music, right? Because people don't even sit and listen and watch movies. Where do they watch movies? On their iPad with their earbuds. Netflix, right? All that stuff. So this is the problem. So I agree with you, Paul, that there used to be a time where this is how we used to listen to music. And this is really the way, at least currently, you need to be able to enjoy an Atmos mix, is you have to sit down in a room and actually listen to the thing. People don't listen to music like that anymore. At least the most popular, the most of the population doesn't listen to music like that anymore. They just don't. People will listen to an MP3 on a streaming platform. They don't care about the high fidelity and all of that. Now, some of us do. Why am I having a problem here? Because this is a double album. I'll do that later. Anyway, so I agree with you that I wish people would listen to music that way. Oh, scroll back up here. Yeah, it's still impractical. Like you said, there's a small portion of the listening music public that gets into all this stuff, right? That will still sit down and listen to vinyl or listen to Atmos, but 99% of the population does not do that. And until you can deliver that medium in a way that people like to consume it, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. At least that's my opinion. Ah, you're 61. Okay, so there you go. So you're older than I am. So you know, right? You grew up on vinyl. You probably still listen to vinyl. And to you, sitting down and listening to music is a nice, relaxing, and enjoyable thing to do. And you take probably time and pride and want to sit down and enjoy your music with your records or however you do it. Those days are gone. Those days are gone. Gone. I don't know. You bought your first stereo in 1978 and it cost you $1,200. Ah, you still use that Techniques turntable today. Very good. Very good. Sung Dog Audio, how are you, brother? Meta VR glasses, Atmos sounds from all directions, who in such a hurry to replace our reality with what? More AI created propaganda. Nobody asked for any of this. Well, I don't disagree with you, but somebody's asking for it. Love this album, right? Joe Bonamassa, great album. Digital Space, how are you, my friend? I'm 51, and the only way I can see Atmos taking off is if the quality can be translated to the majority of people who only have 2 speakers, headphones. Right, just what I just said. Games have it, and I would say it's just okay. Yeah, I can understand people, gamers, if you're a real serious gamer and you're sitting in the right environment, you know, Atmos and game audio makes a lot of sense, right? Especially if you're shooting games and all that stuff. Makes total sense. Nice. Yes. You know what it is? This Joe Bonamassa album is a double album with a lot of inner sleeve stuff. I'll figure that out. So anyway, yeah, that's the whole thing of Atmos. I think it'll probably be here to stay on some level. I'm not worried about it one bit as far as my business goes. At least not now. But we'll see. You never know. Anyhow, so I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. I'm going to head out now. It was great. Thank you so much for taking a look at this patch flock audio thing here. I think it's really cool. I look forward to doing some more live streams with it. And again, when you see the video on Tuesday, please watch the video. If you're new to I see a lot of folks new to the stream today. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and be sure to check out the videos, especially the one on Tuesday where we talk about, I unbox the flock. It's like a 15 or 20 minute video, and I talk about what we're going to be doing. Anyhow, make sure you leave comments in there, questions, things you want to see, you know, whatever. And I'm going to read through those comments and try to gather up that information to try to bring to you the things that you guys are curious about, especially if you're someone that's in the market for a system like this, or you're thinking about it, or you're curious about it. I want to try to help you the best way I can and give you the honest, hands-on truth about this stuff. So you don't have to go searching all over the internet, reading things about things and not knowing whether the information is really true. I'm going to demonstrate it, show you, and I'm going to tell you exactly what my experience is. The good, the bad, and anything else in between. And that's totally cool. Again, Flock Audio is not paying me for any video content. This is not even a unit that they've agreed to let me have. I mean, I have to buy this if I want it. Now, maybe I'll, you know, be able to buy it at a discount if, you know, if we're going to do some work together. But this is not a situation like some of the Audioscape gear or some of the things that we've done in the past for new people for folks that are new here. I'm very transparent when it comes to that. And I tell you whether I'm exchanging my services for a piece of equipment. That happens about 35–40% of the time here. And then there's also when I just go out and buy the gear for myself because I love it. Or if it's a situation like this, where basically I've gotten Flock to agree to let me have it for like 60 days, maybe 90 days. And then I got to make a decision. Do I want it or do I not want it? Is it stable? Is it not stable? Do I like it? Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? And now I'm going to have to buy it. So he realizes that, and he is, again, Darren's a great guy, by the way. He's a lot like Chris over at Audioscape. If you ever seen Chris in Audioscape or you know anything about him, he's a very genuine, passionate guy, honest guy, and it really loves this stuff. And he's really confident about his products. And so is Darren at Flock Audio. And I told him, I am going to report back to my audience what the real experience that I'm having with this stuff is. So if there's things in there that don't work well or inconsistent or whatever, I'm going to report that to you. He knows this, and he's totally down for it and says, put it through its paces. I don't want you to, I don't want you to say something about the stuff that you don't mean, be honest. And that's what we're always going to do here. So that was a really critical part of the negotiation around getting this system in here, was if I'm going to do this, because a lot of you have asked me about this system. I can't tell you how many times on live streams you guys have asked me about the flock stuff. You guys have asked me a million times. So when the opportunity came up, I got it in here, and I'm going to tell you whether I think a system like this is really worth it, because it is expensive. And how does it work functionality-wise, and is it really worth it? Okay? And so if you want to know anything about the system, make sure you let me know in that comment section in that video coming up on Tuesday, because I will try to get the answer for you any way that I can, or I'll demonstrate it, or you have a certain scenario, I will try it and see how it works and let you know how it works or doesn't work or anything in between. Thus far, in the less than 48 hours that I've had with this, it's killer as it is. It's cool as all hell, and it works flawlessly. But I've only had it for a day and a half. So I don't know. So yes, make sure you watch that video, okay? Oh, thank you, man. You subscribed, you bought one of the courses. Which one did you buy? Let me know which one you bought. Okay, so James, you're a little younger than me. Not much, though. You listened to one earlier the other day in your stereo. I'm used to this. 30 years, you need to get used to Atmos. Yeah. But the younger generation may love Atmos. So anyway, that's it for now, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. And I will see you guys in the next live stream. Okay? Heading out. Take care, everybody.